afternoon and
Hi,
welcome.
Professor Islam, and hello, Priyam.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Anjana.
I'm good. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. So in case of the turncoat, I guess there is a new participant who is not participating in stage 1, right? Ognibina
right.
is a new participant, right? Okay.
That's right, Maidul. You're correct.
Yeah.
Maybe they have given a rest, right? They're strong reserve bench players.
Moidul, I've been accused from the morning of torturing these young kids because from 7 in the morning I've been given them a motion, and I'm facing section 144 at home. You know, how dare you torture these young kids? Don't you remember how you used to sleep on Saturday morning?
Right. There's a lot of during the stations on 4th. I guess both Nondita Di and we were. I was apprehensive that sometimes in WhatsApp groups a lot of pop-ins come up. So continuous WhatsApp messages. It's quite distracting actually, but it's also necessary at the same time to keep all of us updated.
Yeah.
No, but by and large, I think this school is really good at organizing, and like it's very difficult to find fault. It's perfectly done.
I couldn't find any, to be honest. So
Something I would say here, Anjana, doing these things online, and one has done it so much for 1.5 years. You are the only institution that actually bothers to thank the judges or the organizers or the moderators or whoever. Thank. The others simply finished, done their vote of thanks online, end of story. It has become, and yet with all that you do, this large spectrum, this huge spectrum, you manage to do it with your customary grace and dignity. So you and your team, triple thumbs up.
Totally.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You are all very, very kind to us.
And it was very well organized, like very planned well ahead. Like a month back, they just at least in my case, a month back, someone called Uditi, I think Uditi contacted me. And then
President Uditi Lunawat, she's right here.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Over the last 2 years, I think we've made it a completely student-run event, which is what makes us very happy and proud. So we've taken the back seat, and we're just backseat drivers while the students are ideating, curating, leading it, making all the technology-enabled platforms possible. So that, in fact, has been a huge journey and a process of growth for us. So we feel good when that happens. Thank you so much.
Very nice.
I mean, absolutely perfect. The organizers, inspired by their principal and other teachers, no doubt, have done a marvelous job. I can't stop thanking them and congratulating them for over the last few days when we've been in touch, and it's absolutely perfect. So take a bow, all the students. Well done.
Let's wait for this to end, and then all the bowing can happen.
Okay. I think we're still waiting for some participants, right?
No, sir. Everybody has joined in.
Everybody's joined? Okay. So please start. It's 2:33.
Yes, thank you, sir. Welcome back to...
Who's ringing the bell today?
Akanksha.
Akanksha.
So the computer sound is shared.
Right.
Welcome back to the third and the final round for VIVAAD, the English debate event for SHUB 2021. This round is going to be held in 2 stages. Stage 1 is an oral round for which the speech has been shared with the participants 2 hours ago. I'm sure our speakers here have heard the speech and interpreted it to the best of their understandings and come up with brilliant explanations. For round 2, we have a turncoat round for which the motion reads, vaccine passports will usher in a new era of surveillance. I would also like to welcome back Mr. Pradeep Gupta. Sir, we are very happy to have you on board as our moderator and a well-wisher for our MBWA family. On the panel of judges today, we have Professor Moidul Islam, Ms. Nandita Pal Chaudhary, and Ms. Swati Gautam. And we are also very happy to have the presence of Mr. Priyam Marik as our guest speaker. Now on the judges' introductions, I will move forward with Professor Islam. Professor Islam is someone who grew up in a household full of political debates and discussions. And that is why we were not surprised when we found out he's a part of the Presidency College's glittering alumni of political scientists. He's also pursued his master's from the esteemed college of JNU. Professor Islam is a keen researcher, a thinker, and a speaker. And his studies of Islamism deal with all the aspects, theoretical, philosophical, as well as the practical elements. Now he has moved on from research on Islam to the universalist questions of political theory and political economy. In his free time, he enjoys singing ghazals, Bollywood movies, and classical music, as well as playing chess and cricket. We're glad to have you, sir. Shriparna, you can take over.
Thank you so much, Karen. I will be introducing the other two judges for the day. That is Miss Nandita Pal Chaudhary and Miss Swati Gautam. Nandita Pal Chaudhary is a social entrepreneur, curating and consulting internationally in the field of Indian folk art craft and performance practices. Cultural Leadership UK, ex-chairperson and trustee India Foundation for the Arts, member FICCI Creative Industries Committee, Trustee Academy of Fine Arts, Calcutta School of Music, Alliance Française, Nimrana Music Foundation, amongst many others. She's also classic trained in Indian classical vocal music under Padma Vibhushan Srimati Girija Devi. Now, Ms. Swati Gautam, she has been an entrepreneur for the last 31 years. She's also the founder of India's only brand of fitted undergarments for women. She has a master's degree in broadcasting from the University of Sheffield. Ma'am has also been a lecturer of journalism and marketing communication at St. Xavier's College for 6 years, a contributor to newspapers, mainly The Telegraph, with her own fortnightly column, a trustee of the Calcutta Debating Circle. She is also a passionate debater in both English and Hindi. A philanthropist by nature, Ma'am also takes initiatives to be a fundraiser for many charities, including her own public charitable trust, that is Pukar. Now I would request Harshita to introduce Priyam sir as our guest speaker for the day.
Thank you, Shriparna. We have Mr. Priyam Marik as our guest speaker for the day. Priyam Marik is a freelance journalist and content writer based in Kolkata. He's completed his bachelor's in English literature from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, before finishing his master's in journalism from the University of Sussex. He has been a debater since school days. He's also a published poet, a massive foodie, and an Barcelona fan. We're so glad to have you with us, sir, as our guest speaker for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Akanksha, you can start with the tech check. So it'll take a minute and then we can move on with the debate.
Right. From Birla High School, do we have Devanshu Chaudhary?
Yes, I'm here.
I think we cannot see you. Is your video on?
Just a second. Yeah. Is it fine now?
Yeah. Is Pushkar Pandey here?
Yep, I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes. Thank you so much. From South Point, do we have Harmanpreet Singh?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Is Agnibina Ghosh here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, thank you. And lastly, do we have Rifa Sheikh here?
Yes, can you see me?
Yes, thank you so much. Over to you, Pradeep, sir. All our participants.
Thank you and good afternoon. The last fortnight has been one of the best fortnights in terms of debating that I've had in many years. 2 weeks ago, we organized an inter-school championship through the Calcutta Debating Circle. 16 schools responded, 13 actually put up teams. There was, in the first format, knockout 1 versus 1 debate, and finally there was a full-scale parliamentary debate, 6 on each side. Mahadevi Birla World Academy's event, which started yesterday afternoon, has been an equally brilliant series of debates that started yesterday. And we had the usual, we had schools putting up 1 speaker for, 1 speaker against. Then in the morning, we had semifinals in which 6 schools participated once again, as teams, as parliamentary teams, and in the end, 2 schools have emerged. Sharing my journey in the earlier round of debates partly was Priyam. So welcome back, Priyam. I hope we will share notes on how brilliant the 13 schools in our round and the other 13 schools in this round were. The recordings of both are available, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy listening to these recordings for years to come. It's been a really well-organized event, and before the formal vote of thanks comes about and there are winners and perhaps non-winners, because there are no losers in this entire round of marvelous debating. You know, it's been amazing, and I wish to thank all the organizers. There's Karen, there's Uditi, there's Priyanka, Vidula, Akanksha, Harshita, Karen, I've mentioned your name, okay, but no harm in mentioning it twice. There's Anjana, ma'am, Principal Anjana Shaha, ma'am Ishita, and so many others who've really put this event together. And also all the 26 speakers who spoke right from the preliminary round yesterday. I don't know about you, it may have been exhausting, it may have been long, but I think we maintained time and we had a wonderful debate. Just for the information of the judges, the earlier motions I'm sure will be shared with you by the organizers. They're also in the group, so you would have seen the motion. We are trying to switch over cover different aspects in debating. And today's first debate, the stage 1, is on colonialism. There's a video clip which was sent as a guide, which was then simplified into a motion which says, British colonialism in India was a big negative in terms of human development indicators. And I'm sure our speakers today are ready and dying to go. There is somebody who will, you will hear a computer-generated buzz, I guess 30 seconds before your speech ends. So do wind up, do maintain your time discipline. As you were told by Moyuri earlier today, remember, if you read, then we can understand that you're reading. So try to talk to us. This is not a newsreaders contest for a Doordarshan job. This is a debate in school, so enjoy yourself. And finally, since you are debating as teams, we do expect you to show some team spirit, some degree of cooperation, some degree of interaction, some degree of engagement, and a lot of direct questioning of the points put forward by your opponents. Now, the very interesting thing about this morning's debate is that we have 4 speakers. Devanshu, and questioning him will be Rifa. Then we have Pushkar. Harmanpreet will be asking the questions to Pushkar. Then we have Harmanpreet speaking, and Pushkar will return the compliment. And finally, when Devanshu the Rifa speaks, Devanshu will ask the question. So remember to ask a tough question in the first round, because the compliment will be returned without fail. However, in case your designated questioner cannot ask you the question, I'm sure one of their colleagues will step forward and ask you an equally tough question. So make it tough, make it enjoyable, make it educative, informative, and entertaining, because this is, after all, a Saturday afternoon. So let's not make it boring. Let's have a few jokes, let's have a few wisecracks when we do. The first speaker in favor of the motion will be Devanshu Chaudhary of Birla High School. Devanshu, I've heard you. This is the 3rd time I'm hearing you. You've never failed to excite our minds. So over to you.
Thank you, sir. May I begin? I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
The sun never sets on the British Empire because even God couldn't trust the British in the dark. This quote, in the simplest of terms, exemplifies the pernicious nature of colonial Raj. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to define human development for the ease of today's debate. Human development is a process of enlarging the range of people's choices, increasing their opportunities for education, healthcare, income, and empowerment, and also improving their well-being. Moving on, firstly, to understand the negative impact of British colonial Raj, we need to look at the British exploitation at the tea plantations. Official reports show how the colonial government often used unfair means to hire and forcibly keep laborers who clearly worked on behalf of the British planters. Ladies and gentlemen, tea industry in India was booming in Assam in the 1850s. And instead of incentivization of laborers, they took recourse to fraud and coercion and made them work in the most unhealthy, unfavorable, and deplorable conditions. Not just this, but penal sanctions in case of non-fulfillment were also passed. Ladies and gentlemen, even today, workers are not respected and are denied their rights. This is human development. This is something we have inherited from the Britishers. This is the very antithesis of human development, which we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Thus, when the social reality is this, where the indicators such as the income generation, employment, empowerment, and labor conditions are exploited to the T, I can vehemently say that British colonial Raj was a big negative in terms of human development. And talking about human development indicators, ladies and gentlemen, an extremely important facet of this motion also lies in the administration. Look at any piece of history, be it Strachan or be it Winston Churchill's speech at the Albert Hall in 1931. The mindset of British Raj was pervasive. The British did not believe in giving decision-making powers to Indians because they thought Indians were immature and incapable of making decisions. When an entire institution, ladies and gentlemen, rejects any capacity of decision-making power, an automatic consequence is a diminished and restricted gamut of choices and opportunities. And thus, we need to understand that the rejection of capacity of Indians to take control of their own nation has led to the elitism and centralized nature of Indian governments even till now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Devanshu. Rifa, I hope you have a tough question for him. Where are you? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, he spoke of development, human development in terms of employment and administration. But won't you admit that if the British had not come, then the railways, as we see today as the largest employer in the world, would not have existed? I feel that maybe if the British had not come, then we would have taken a few more generations to reach to the stage where we are at now. So won't you admit that the British did help in the employment opportunities and help in the better infrastructure of the country?
You know, it's very seldom in a debater's career when the question itself fosters the speaker's point. You're talking about railways, you're talking about other kinds of employment generations. Let us take it one step further. What kind of employment are we talking about? The minimalist employment we are talking about here. They exploited our resources. And one more thing, when you're talking about that few more generations would have taken place, let me assure you, evolution is a constant aspect. There have been many countries who got independence at the same, or rather who got independence earlier and have bloomed or blossomed after after the colonial rule was over. In such a case, having such a pessimistic approach that the Indian nation could not have fostered itself in the coming years, it's extremely ridiculous. And even if you're bringing that aspect, I'll just conclude with a statement. If you're bringing the employment aspect, let me tell you, even in the 1952, when the first elections took place, all the Western media, Western houses, everybody in the world said that the Indian democracy wouldn't function. We are not capable enough. What exactly happened? Today we are the largest democracy. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Devanshu. Thank you, Devanshu. Before I asked the first speaker of the opposition, who is Pushkar Pandey, another very formidable debater, to make his point. Let me tell you, after the first round, we'll have the archival video show for about 10 minutes, and then we get round to stage 2 of the debate. So Pushkar, over to you. Once again, you've been a really informative, enjoyable speaker since yesterday. So
I'll start.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible has a very somber verse that says, sometimes good cometh out of evil. Today, the good that I'm talking about is the progress that India has made, and the evil is the British colonial rule. Today, human development indicators are essentially seen through the lens of education, health, civil liberties, and income. Firstly, let us take a look at the education system we have inherited. The British educated Indians so that these educated Indians could assist the British in governing India. But let us not forget that it were these Indians who helped promulgate liberal ideas and thoughts that served as a catalyst for societal transformation. Don't forget that in Travancore, in the early 20th century, schools were burned because upper caste people did not want lower caste people to go to school. Such an exclusivist and elitist system of education would never foster a rise in literacy rates, which is an established human development indicator. Thus, Western education, which we inherited from the British, did help after independence to see a rise in literacy rates. Second of all, let us take a look at modern medicine that is practiced in India. Is it indigenous medicine? Do we still follow Ayurveda and Unani in India? The first medical college teaching modern medicine was established in 1826 by the Britishers. It is the practice of this modern system of medicine that is responsible for the increase in life expectancy of the people, which is again an established human development indicator. Third, let us take a look at civil liberties. We must understand that before the Britishers, we had authoritarian monarchies for pretty much the entirety of Indian history, which were, I submit to you, worse than the British in terms of repression of people. Today, the system of governance we have inherited, the institutions, Western political ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity are largely the product of British colonial rule as well as the influence it had on Indian intellectuals. Lastly, when we look at the deficiencies in India, when we wonder where we went wrong, we must realize that we cannot continue blaming the British. We need to take control of the future and what we have inherited and ensure that India becomes the country its forefathers wanted it to become. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushkar. Thank you. Harmanpreet, you have to ask him the question, wait for his reply, and then come up with your speech. But about that, I'll notify you later. Ask him the question.
Yes, sir. Now, sir, you said that the British enlightened us with their system of education, but don't you think it was at a very high cost because our own values, our own culture, our own languages were compromised? Didn't it create an inferiority complex in Indians? So how can you say that the British Empire was so enlightening in terms of education?
First of all, I object to your usage of the word enlightening, which you imputed to me. I wouldn't go that far as to say we were enlightened by the British. But the fundamental point that you're missing is what culture, what values? Should we have retained sati? Should we have retained caste system? Are these the cultures and values that people wish to preserve? The fact of the matter is that essentially India was, in a sense, very outdated or isolationist when it came to ideas. We were receptive to ideas. But the fact of the matter is when the British came with their trade, when India, in a sense, saw a rather primordial globalization, we got access to modern values. And regarding the cost, the immediate cost might have been great, but the fact of the matter is that pretty much the growth that we have seen after independence is because of this liberal system of education. Even when a bamboo plant grows, the roots grow for way longer and the shoot only emerges way after and grows very quickly. But don't forget that the roots are important, the roots also matter, and these aren't visible, but the shoot is visible. The effects are visible and they are tangible even now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pushkar. So Harmanpreet, are you ready with your speech now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Harmanpreet goes for the motion. Start.
So I'll begin by quoting Chadwick Boseman, who said, colonialism is the cousin of slavery. Now, what happened during Indian colonialism was that we effectively paid for our own oppression. Members of the opposition are standing in opposition to the fact that the British was in fact exploiting Indians, but how will they deny that 15 to 30 million Indians died during famines induced by the discriminatory economic policies of the British? I cannot understand how can they ignore the suffering of their ancestors. I like to remind you of the Bengal famine during the Second World War, when 4 million people died because Winston Churchill decided to divert the supplies from Bengal to Britain because he thought the already underfed Bengalis did not require any nourishment and all of it should be used for the already sturdy Greeks. The question of railways was raised. How many countries in the world have railways today? Almost all. Have all been colonized and enslaved? And moreover, the railways were built for the benefit of the British itself. They transported their goods through the railways and all of it was incentivized by the taxes paid by Indians. Now, today, many social evils thrive in Britain. So does it give Indians a right to go there, colonize them, enslave them, and treat them how to be civilized? We saw their civilization on display when they lost a soccer match a few days ago. So should Indians go and try to enslave them now? Secondly, development comes only after harmony. My grandmother was a survivor of the partition and she yearned to see the resting place of Guru Nanak, that is Kartarpur Sahib, all her life. But what she could do? She could only look at it through binoculars from a distance. Imagine a Muslim being forced to look at the mosque at Medina via binoculars. The pain
you need
is
to
a
wind up.
collective suffering of the Indian people. And therefore, I don't think, and I think that the very idea that the British civilized us comes from a very enslaved mindset of the speakers of the opposition. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pushkar, strong statement, huh? Reflect, ask him the question that you want to ask him. Put him on a mat.
I mean, to a straightforward and simple question. Ignoring the fact that there were, of course, direct ramifications of the colonial rule, do you think that there would be any other agent of modernity which would transform, which would serve as an impetus for India to become a globalized and modern society which engages with the world, which rejects all of its negative traits?
Yes, we can see the history of the world. You do not need to be enslaved to interact with the world. In fact, India had 1/4 of the GDP of the world before colonization. What happened to it after the colonization? Was it civilization to any extent? I don't think so. And ridiculing your own culture, your own traditions, and reveling in the fact that you are slaves is a very sick mentality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harmanpreet. Very strong words. Good question and an equally strong reply. Rifa, you're the last speaker. You will be speaking against the motion. I'm asking you, your question will be Devanshu. So Rifa, over to you. Start.
The British took so many resources from India and deprived the country of its wealth. This has been pointed out by my worthy opponent Devanshu. But I would like to ask him, isn't the benefit that we are experiencing today more than the cost we had to pay so many years ago? If we calculate the benefit-cost ratio, the result will be surely more than 1. Even before the British came, betrayal was pertinent within the Mughal Empire. They themselves were fighting with each other for territory and power. The British just came and fueled the fire. They took advantage of the lack of harmony among the Indian rulers at that time. When it comes to partition, let me point out that the partition was not their brainchild. Some experts say that it happened because of several Indian leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who said that Muslim needs will not be catered to in a Hindu majority country. The British just supported their argument. Moreover, in a country where people are themselves divided on the basis of caste and religion, enforcing a division is quite easy. Coming to my next point, the British constructed railways for their own benefit from 1850 to 1947. But if you look at the GDP percentage of last year, we find that 1% of the GDP, equivalent to almost $27 million is contributed by the railways. It is the largest network of railways and the largest employer with almost 10 lakh employees today. So who is benefited in the long run? Now let us look at colonialism and its impacts. It connected remote parts of the country to the capitals and helped in better administration. People no longer had to walk for miles or wait for days to receive replies to their letters. They brought with them modern science and technology. They promoted modern education, better management skills, and also in large-scale production of goods. Several large-scale companies like iron and steel and jute industries have also come up as a result. Even the Indian banking systems developed following the British banking system, which helped our money market to become more structural. In fact, I feel that we should feel lucky that the East India Company was set up in Bengal. Bengal was blessed with modern education while the other parts of the country took some time to get exposed to it. Because of the support from the British, revolutionaries like Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Vidyasagar came up to stop social ills like sati and child marriage. That if the British had not come, we might have taken 100 years more to reach the position that we stand today. With that, I rest my case, but not my stance. Thank you.
Thank you, Rifa. Devanshu, your turn to ask her the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Rifa, for your speech. I have a very simple question about a fallacy that you have mentioned. You have talked about Muhammad Ali Jinnah and other actors coming into the partition of India. What exactly do you have to say about the two-nation theory, which was actually first proposed by T.S. Eliot's history in the 1700s regarding
India? Okay, let's take it that suppose the British enforces it, but if the Indians are united, they don't languish and create divisions among themselves on the basis of caste and religion, would the British have ever been succeeded to create this division? I feel that it is because of the underlying divisions that we have in ourselves that the British could come and take over us. They created the two-nation theory because Indians allowed them to do. What will you do if someone comes to your house and, for example, you have a conflict going in your house and someone else comes and fuels up the fire? You can't blame that person. You are yourself having a fight with someone from your own family. So this is my point.
Thank you, Rifa. This is possibly our last debate before Independence Day. So I'm very glad that you've applied your mind to the motion. You've done considerable amount of research. You've argued passionately. You've presented your facts with a great deal of fire. And I'm very happy that the discussion has gone the way it has. Now, we will now break for the archival video for about 10 minutes till we come back for the second stage and the turncoat round. Do we have, may I request the organizers, is there anything else that we need to keep in mind before we break? Okay, we are on track. So we take a 10-minute break for the archival video, then we come back for stage 2.
It is not just an annual fest conducted by Mahadevi Birla World Academy. It is honestly VIVAAD family. It is a feeling, an emotion that we experience when we conduct this fest. The journey of Shabd started from 2014, and we are still continuing with that legacy even today. Shabd stands out from any other fest because it is essentially an entirely student-led fest. However, this would not have been a practical reality without the constant, tremendous support of our mentor, Ms. Jayashree Mohta, our principal, Ma'am Anjana Shah, all the teachers, and the entire management. Shabd is meant to be multifaceted in terms of the linguistic capabilities as well as a kaleidoscopic platform of competing brilliance from each and every stakeholder in the forum during action. We aim to make it a platform where diverse opinions are welcomed from the youth fearlessly. Shabd is therefore extremely close to all of our hearts as it teaches us to be more understanding and appreciate the effort involved. We nurture and care for it deeply because it is majorly a process of learning and not competing. We believe it is a process that helps the young minds greatly to improve their oracy, which is a must in today's world, and assist them in honing their effective communication skills. In Shabd, we have had motions in the past that has covered some very core controversial issues, such as the state of education system in the country in the 2015 Shabd edition, the actual utility of books in modern times in 2016, international political issues in 2017, gender biasedness in 2020, which is also a solid reality in our country today. In 2018, we have had motions debating about the actual need of philanthropy and its actual implementation and meaning in our country. The judges panel we have had is immensely illustrious as we were blessed enough for the presence of Ms. Swati Gautam, Mr. Pradeep Guptu, who are absolute successes in their respective fields. To judge, Mr. Kunal Sharkar also graced our panel, who is a very big name in the Calcutta debating circle. So is Ms. Nandita Pal Chaudhary, who all can be called veterans to our event. And what is more special to us is that these respected personalities come back to us to judge our events, for which we are absolutely thrilled because they have indeed become a part of the MBWA family in this process. The feeling of togetherness is intact, and we hope that it stays like this for eternity.
Last year, we still did not let the spirit of Shabd die, even though everything went into complete lockdown and meant fighting against all the odds. It is therefore nothing but the constant backing up we get from our principal ma'am, vice principal ma'am, teachers, and the entire management that motivates us to not give up and be in a constant pursuit of bettering our best. The circumstances, although compelled us to switch to an online mode, we still did not let the quality and standard of the debate deteriorate. And this is why our school always leads the path from darkness to light. Tamsoma Jyoti Gamaya.
Shabd commenced in 2014 and had events such as debate, quiz, and Scrabble. But as the years have passed, we have also tried to make Shabd such that it is in constant balance with the changing world around us. Creative learning is the very essence of Shabd, and that is why we have introduced vernacular events in due course of time to make the fest even richer. Shabd has grown a lot over time, and we are certain it will touch even greater heights in the years to come.
Thank you. Can we resume now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. In the first round, which was a parliamentary round, we debated on British colonialism in India, whether it was a big negative in terms of human development indicators, or was it tempered by some positives, or was it overwhelmingly positive? We had 4 very impassioned speakers. We dealt with oppression and freedom at the national level. For the turncoat round, I was looking around for a subject that would deal with freedom at a personal level. And I have no doubt, no hesitation in admitting that the motion for your turncoat round came up from my friend Mayuri Mukherjee, who indicated the one that you see. Vaccine passports will usher in a new era of surveillance. This has something to do with individual freedom as distinct from national freedom. I think it's it's an issue that is agitating a lot of our minds. We have 2 speakers in this round. From the Birla High School, we will have Pushkar Pandey, who will have all of 3 minutes. He will speak for the first 1.5 minutes for the motion and then 1.5 minutes against the motion. He will be followed by Ognibina Ghosh of South Point High School, who will once again speak 1.5 minutes for, 1.5 minutes against. I'm assuming that the buzzer at 90 seconds will be played by somebody in the system. Akanksha, you're doing it today?
Yes.
Okay, right. So if we are all set, can I request Pushkar to go first? Birla High School, tell us the positives and negatives of vaccine passports, surveillance, whether it's something we should accept or whether it's something we should be vigilant against. Pushkar, over to you.
Right. I mean, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, today's debate is not about the morality of a surveillance state. Today's debate is simply about whether vaccine passports will usher in a new era of surveillance, whether it ushers in something that is unprecedented. What we need to understand is that vaccine passports, which are issued by a nation, are tied up to what vaccine you're taking and where you're taking it. Various countries often have different policies regarding vaccines. So what vaccine passports do is that they act as an instrument to track your movements. This is not just between countries, but also within countries, such as India, for example. What this essentially does is that it creates a new category of people who are vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated, and it gives governments the authority to track their movements. This, by definition, is what is surveillance. The thing that is novel about it, however, is the dichotomy that it utilizes in order to carry out this surveillance. The government, we must understand, is a direct incentive in knowing where people are going in order to get data for epidemiology, whether the vaccine is working or not, whether people are being infected or whether people are engaging more in infecting when it comes to the travelers. So what we need to understand that this new category that has been created and this new instrument of vaccine passports that is based on whether you are vaccinated or not will usher in an era of surveillance that is unprecedented. Because now normal passports don't utilize this characterization. You'll see rhetoric around us also, for example, on Twitter, for example, which call people who are not vaccinated as rats, which is something which will create society hostile against such people. And this is what leads to surveillance. Now, on the contrary, I might very well argue that vaccine passports simply give people a leeway to move from region to region. It is like a mere document. It is very similar to a normal passport. Sure, it may track your movement. I will concede that. In that sense, what is new about it? Because we must remember the motion said it ushers in a new era of surveillance. A new era of surveillance would have arisen when we have a smartphones that have the ability to track our movement, which have the ability to track our motion everywhere we go. You get advertisements based on that. I remember I went out for a walk and I got an advertisement, for example, which was recommending sports shoes or gym advertisements. I have many people have suffered the same. So there's nothing novel about this. You must understand that surveillance has been here for a while. And when it comes to vaccine passport, there's nothing new about it. You must understand that in countries such as China, they have systems wherein they'll track the persons, for example, they might track the person's biometrics. Maybe not in China, but in a hypothetical Orwellian state where China is pretty close to that, it might track your every heartbeat. When the supreme leader is speaking, whether you're overjoyed or whether you're anxious or whether you're hatred, that sort of a wristband would be a new era of surveillance, not a mere piece of paper, not a mere document. I can concede it might be a tool for carrying out surveillance, but I submit there's nothing novel about it, there's nothing new about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushkar. Tracking heartbeats would cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. You know, sometimes, for example, I may meet somebody who will turn my heart cold, and if my heartbeat comes down, you know, that would also perhaps raise a few questions in Lal Bazaar. I don't know. That's a really frightening future that you've presented before us. Thank you, Pushkar, for such a scary, scary outline of your motion. And now, Ognibina, it's up to you. Once again, you've been a great debater all the previous rounds, and we enjoyed you hearing you speak. So, Ognibina, over to you. First 1.5 minutes for, then 1.5 minutes against. Watch out for the buzzer. Start.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to begin by saying that we are all aware that when you go to countries like America or UK, and if you have a very imposing beard or say monolids or a darker shade of skin, people will call you out that I need to check your luggage. And you'll answer them, but you're already checking everyone else's luggage. Why can't I be in the same line? And then they'll tell you, it's a random check. The very same will happen if we implement vaccine passports along with the normal passports. In fact, anti-Asian hate, which is a very raging issue right now, is on the rise. And people are victimizing and brutalizing people and accusing them of spreading a certain virus, whereas in fact they have nothing to do with it. And all the mistakes, the only mistake they had made was to be born a certain way. Now let us talk about the cost effectiveness of a vaccine passport. Think about the refugees. Bangladesh very famously helped the Rohingya Muslims. Now, if the Bangladeshi Prime Minister had said, no, I won't let you in my country until you can show me this too. And these people don't even have a home. You expect them to insert injections in their body and show you proofs that, no, I won't contract these diseases. You're very sick. And therefore, these people's freedom, which is the key word here today, are affected. Now, on the other side, vaccine passports are not a new thing. We were talking about a new era of surveillance, like Pushkar mentioned. When you go to Kenya, you have to take the yellow fever vaccine. Otherwise, they won't let you in. But what is it for? Is it for the Kenyans? No, it is for your own benefit. It is so that you have the freedom to travel from one country to another and enjoy your nice little vacation. In fact, one of the reasons Jacinda Ardern failed in maintaining the COVID-free era of New Zealand was because a certain man from a certain country came into her nation and he had the coronavirus, and therefore the virus spread again. Thus, if we do have vaccine passports, speaking from a point of privilege, it will only bolster our freedom instead of reducing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnivina. A very reasoned argument and no scary images yet. So thank you, because Pushkar really scared the life out of me. You know, with him tracking my heartbeat would really be a real big worry. Thank you. I think we've had a marvelous debate, and the judges will now be required to surrender their mark sheets to the administrator so that they can do the tabulation. And while the judges are doing this, let me tell you, Priyam has, I think, a speech waiting for us. Priyam, you have been listening to multiple debate speeches ever since you came back from the UK, and you heard the speeches today. So tell us what you thought of both stage 1 and stage 2, the way national freedom, colonialism was approached, and how individual freedom, vaccine passports, was handled by our young friends.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. And firstly, let me tell you what a pleasure it is for me to be associated with Mahadevi Birla World Academy and Shabd in particular, because I was there for the very first edition competing as a debater in 2014. And I remember Mr. Gupta was the judge as well in 2014. And I was also there in 2015 as a class 12 student. So it's a real privilege for me to be back. And as everyone here has already said, the organization has been so seamless over the last few weeks. There were some issues with my availability, with my timings, but then all of those were handled really seamlessly. So I'm grateful for that as well. As Mr. Gupta also said, that over the last few weeks, I have heard quite a few debates, and it has been sort of a golden period of debating this last fortnight. Today's standard was right up there, the finals. I haven't heard these speakers before, this particular set of speakers before, but the standard was really, really good. Firstly, a quick couple of words on the format of these two rounds in particular, starting with the turncoat. I think what I really enjoyed about the turncoat, apart from the arguments, was the smoothness of the transition from side for to side against. Speakers mess that up. A lot of speakers make it very clear that now they're going to go against, or now that they're going to go for. But the transition here was handled expertly. So well done on that. As far as the more standard for and against speeches are concerned in stage 1 of the finals, the only thing I would say is that at times I felt that the speakers had too many points and too little time in which to substantiate them, right? in such a situation, I think it's always best to go with a few points, but really nail those points rather than being like, okay, try and get all 6 within a certain amount of time. It's a mistake that I used to make in my school days a lot. So I hope, you guys can avoid that going forward. In terms of the content, both very interesting motions. I particularly am interested in the vaccine passports motions because, this has been such a big debate, and maybe not so much in India, but in the UK. And I was there in the UK for the best part of last year. And a lot of people were against the idea of vaccine passports because they felt it was infringing with their autonomy as individuals, infringing with their idea of liberty. The question we need to really ask is not so much whether a vaccine passport is a bad thing or a malicious thing, but whether vaccine passports can lead to a slippery slope wherein greater surveillance, greater documentation, even for that matter, snooping, becomes something that is normalized. During any period of crisis, you will see that great changes are ushered into society very quickly because accountability and scrutiny decrease, because apparently these changes are being introduced for the sake of public interest. And I think that is something we need to anticipate, and that is something we need to raise questions about. As I think Pushkar mentioned about how we could potentially reach a stage where our heartbeats and for that matter, things like blood pressure are being documented while we're listening to a politician's speech. This is something that Yuval Noah Harari talks about, one of my favorite philosophers, under the idea of surveillance capitalism, that this is something that's already come in and that's going to come in even more. I mean, we are already seeing what's happening with Pegasus, right? Which is very covert and very secretive. But could we get to a time when surveillance is open, it's very much out there, it's actually considered a virtue, it's considered a part of the duties, maybe even fundamental duties of a citizen to be surveilled by the government that is supposed to be governing you and your interests. So I think I would have liked a little more attention on the slippery slope part, that yes, vaccine passports are obviously there. They are being started in a few countries. But what about 5 years, 10 years time? What are the things that we could potentially see that could be got away with just because we got away with vaccine passports or governments got away with vaccine passports in this day and age in 2021? Quick thoughts on the first motion. I think in some ways, if I was arguing for the motion, I would say that British colonialism being a big negative for India's human development indicators is the biggest euphemism I've ever heard. A big negative, or in other words, an unmitigated disaster, perhaps. But yes, I think the key question here, and perhaps what was missing slightly, is a bit of nuance to this particular motion. We all know that there were some advantages out of British rule. There is no doubt about that. The question is whether the British really intended those. The question is whether the British really intended the railways to empower Indians the way it did, whether they really intended the language English to unify the country in the way they did. To my perspective, they did not. But is intent something that we are factoring into the debate? Because if we are, then it becomes really difficult to oppose this motion. Because for the most part, the British were acting in their own interests to further their own colonial rule. There were some inadvertent benefits that occurred as a result of British rule, which again cannot be doubted did improve quality of life for a number of Indians. But the second aspect, which I felt again was maybe slightly missing, is who are the Indians we're talking about who benefited under British rule? We're talking about a certain privileged class of Indians who got to go to places like Oxford, got to go to places like Cambridge. Yes, they brought with themselves ideas that helped change the country in terms of mobilizing those ideas. And for example, if people like Jawaharlal Nehru had not gone to UK for their education, the idea of parliamentary democracy may not have been as robust in India. The insistence on parliamentary democracy as a model after independence may not have been as robust. But then when we are analyzing this as a potential benefit, how are we weighing it up against the costs where thousands and thousands of people were essentially franchised? Someone brought up the Bengal famine, so I'm glad you did, because that's one of those egregious examples of how, forget about human development, that is not even considered those people human beings, right? So, was a country with multitudes of people, with multitudes of classes, with multitudes of castes. So therein, somewhere down the line, when you're arguing for your case, perhaps highlight which stakeholder you're talking about, which stakeholder you felt benefited more, which stakeholder you felt lost more. That would perhaps bring greater clarity and bring greater nuance to a motion like this. Having said that, I understand it's always easier in retrospect to comment on debates and far harder to actually execute all of that within 3-4 minutes. So kudos to all of you. I think the standard, as I said, was great. And personally, I've always felt that doing Zoom debates is much harder than doing in-person physical debates. So once again, congratulations for maintaining such clarity and also adding a bit of humor. Humor these days in school debates for some reason is not as frequent as it used to be when, let's say, when I was in school. But it was good to see some humor and some wit as well. So thank you so much for having me here. All the best for the results. And I hope to be part of Shabd going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyam. I had no idea that I had committed the cardinal error of being a judge at your school debate. It was completely unintentional. While I do remember you debating, I do not remember you at the Mahadevi Birla Hall. If I had, it's a moment of intense embarrassment. Besides going to prove exactly how ancient I am, it's always, it shows that I have hardly moved on in life, whereas Priyam has really shot up through the ranks. Thank you, Priyam. That's doubly embarrassing. But, it's lovely hearing. And, you're right. Given yesterday, the last week's CDC debate and the one before that, it was really amazing. So let's hear our judges speak. And may I request, with the permission of the organizers, Nandita, will you go first, or Swati, will you go first? And then finally, Moidul, will you wind up the proceedings? Yeah? Okay.
I think I'll go first in the order of knowing the least about debating. All I have to say to begin with is that thank you for the opportunity. And each time, I get into this position of listening to the younger generation speak, it really gives us a lot, especially me, a shot of rejuvenation and a lot of hope that maybe the parliament in India will change someday, and there will be the younger people like you who eventually join the ranks of MPs, who will actually in a civilized fashion put forth your ideas and discuss things so that we can all move forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for illuminating all of us.
Swati, are you ready? Thank you, Nandita. That was wonderful. I'll just, Swati, please.
Yes, I am. And just for the organizers, I've emailed it to the other mail ID you sent too. So just check if you've got this question or not. Yeah, thank you. Now, this was a wonderful, wonderful debate, very much in the traditions of Shabd and very much how Anjana has completely rejuvenated debating at Mahadevi Birla World Academy. Goes to show how the pyramidal effect works completely. She loves debating, and look where MBWA is today. I had heard the Mahadevi Birla girls at the Ellen Birla Finals this year. They were absolutely fantastic. Of course, we all have our days. We do too. You will have too. But then, wonderful. There are two quick things I'd like to say, because Priyam has done an absolutely effortless yet wonderful job of summing up both the motions that were debated upon. But there's two specific positive points that I'd like to bring to everyone's notice. Use those to great effect. Use those to great credibility. One, the use of a disclaimer. I think Pushkar did it. His opening line was a disclaimer that we are not going to debate the morality of the surveillance state. This kind of thing is very helpful when you're debating these very short time, high pressure debates. It helps a lot. Sometimes a personal touch helps immensely. Harmanpreet Singh's evoking his grandmother. Wonderful. Now, a note of the other three debaters present here were no less, but I'd like to rush through this very quickly. And the more important thing that I'd like to mention is this to all of you youngsters. You see, whenever you decide to read out either of a prepared text on your screen or with a paper that's stuck to your laptop, remember this. You're also a question seeker. You're also an answer giver. Your styles cannot be vastly different in doing so. So if you pause naturally when you ask a question, or if you pause naturally when you answer a question, pause naturally even when you're reading out from a text. So what I'm trying to say is, if at all your conscience permits you to read out from a text which is just not acceptable, should not be acceptable to your conscience, then at least do so with intelligence. Thank you so much, everybody. Anjana, Ishita, the team, I just cannot appreciate it any more than this. You were brilliant in these 2 days of back-to-back debating. Thank you very much for keeping the culture alive in Calcutta. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. We now go to Moidul, and Moidul, today's motions were very much up your street. This is a subject in which you're a master. I mean, you've been teaching this, you've been researching on this. So I'm naturally dying to hear what you have to say about how our young friends are approaching these problems. And what I for one have learned so much from them over the last few days. I have pages of my notebook filled with the points that they've made over the last 3 debates. So over to you, Moidul.
Yeah, first of all, I must congratulate all the participants. They were absolutely brilliant and fantastic, very articulate. And also it's quite a challenge to actually speak, as PM was correctly pointing out, that it's always very difficult to debate online on the Zoom platform than debate in person. So this was very nicely put up. And also in terms of time limit, 1.5 minutes is really a very short time to actually expand on such a broad topic. So this is first of all of them deserve congratulations, a very, very hearty congratulations from me. The second thing which I thought in terms of the motion. So the stage 1 motion, you see, Indians are naturally anti-colonial. So if you have a motion which will favor the motion, so those who are actually in favor the motion will have more arguments. But what was missing, and I think I'm just making this thing in terms of what was missing, is that while favoring the position that the British colonialism was a huge negative in terms of human development indicators, apart from these whole narratives of exploitation and oppression which came out, but I was expecting something from Amartya Sen, the poverty and famine story. I was expecting Dadabhai Nauroji's kind of this entire poverty and un-British rule in India. I was expecting a little bit of maybe what Winston Churchill was notoriously said, that Indians actually deserve the famine. It's their famine because they breed like rabbits. So I think those things should have come up in terms of the depth of the knowledge and the kind of reasoning. So that was a bit missing. But otherwise, in terms of rhetoric, the rhetorical devices that were used, I think it was simply great. But it was very difficult in terms of turn codes, so for and against. So keep this momentum in future, and I think all of you will be great debaters in the long run. I have a brief thing to also say as far as the archival video is concerned. So when Kunal Sarkar was named, and of course instead of Kunal Sarkar, it was Mr. Kunal Sarkar instead of Dr. Kunal Sarkar. I think doctors do take personal kind of offense sometimes. And instead of the photograph of Kunal Sarkar, a lot of photographs of Purnab Mukherjee actually appeared. He seems to be very active still. I knew him 10 years back when he used to come to JNU. But anyway, so just be careful in terms of making the kind of archival video. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to judge this final.
Thank you, Moidul. I quite admit that the first debate motion, that was a difficult one to actually oppose because. But then we have to remember also when we are talking about Human Development Index, and I'm not getting into a debate with Moidul now, okay? Although I'd love to get into a debate with him on this at some other platform, I'm sure. When you think of India, our reasonably secular laws, Western education, the foundations of Indian industry, the foundation of engineering, tea, coal mining, a lot of this stuff, I think you can have a forceful debate in saying that, okay, we may have paid a lot more than we should have paid, but we were exposed to things, and then our genius came forth after 47, when on our own we set up our IITs, on our own we set up AIMS, on our own. Two of my friends, Dr. Sandeep Chatterjee does world-class neurosurgery in a third world country. Dr. Kunal Sarkar does world-class cardiac surgery in a third world country. These things couldn't have happened had, British rule perhaps not introduced us to these disciplines. So one day Moidul and I will have a big debate on this, and you're free to listen in, anybody who's interested. And I'm sure that, Moidul is a wonderful, wonderful friend to have, and I love debating these points with him. And occasionally we have really heated WhatsApp exchanges on various issues. Thank you, Mahadevi Birla World Academy, for a wonderful, wonderful series of debates. And to reiterate once again, the last fortnight, such wonderful debaters, a completely different set of schools at Mahadevi Birla, as distinct from the earlier set at the CDC event. So I'm so glad that I got to hear 26 students in our event, and then 26 students here again. I know there are 52 great debaters in Kolkata at least. So I know who to contact, which schools to contact, how to get in touch with you. And I'm also glad that just before Independence Day, we could debate these two issues as part of your finals, because this is something, our freedom at a national level and freedom at an individual level are both equally important, and both need to be kept in mind. Thank you. With this, let me hand it back to the organizers and to the wonderful team who's been running this. Over to the CEO, who I think is Karen, or whatever, event in charge, Karen Korea. So back to you, Karen, and Harshita, and everybody else. Sipana, Akanksha.
Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to invite Principal Ma'am, without whom none of this would have been possible, to say a few words.
It's my turn now just to say thank you. I think I've been overwhelmed by the support this event has received over the past so many years. Such prolific speakers, erudite judges, esteemed guests have lent credibility to our event. So it's my turn to just thank you all for your patience, for your support, and for Mr. Gupta, who has been engaging with us over the years, and especially this time, hours and hours of work, hours and hours of research and patience that has got into making this event what I feel is a success. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and thank you to the students for hosting this, for taking the load off our backs, and for being so sensitive to the needs of judges, guests, mentors, moderator, sir, as well as all teacher representatives and students who have joined Shabd. This is not just VIVAAD that we are hosting. We've had the quiz, we've had a Bangla event, Unubhuti, we've had Hunkar, a Hindi event, which is still lined up. And it's not been easy to juggle academics and co-curriculars. So I think students, this has been a lesson in life skills and leadership, which will stand you in good stead for the rest of your life. Cheers to the team that has made Shabd possible. Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to everybody.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That means a lot to us. Now I'll go on with the vote of thanks. I would like to begin by thanking our moderator, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, and our judges for this round, Ms. Swati Gautam, Ms. Nandita Pala Chaudhary, and Mr. Moidul Islam, as well as our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Priyam Marik, who have taken out time from their extremely busy schedules today. Moreover, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude towards Principal Ma'am, who's been a constant pillar of support to us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our teachers who have guided us throughout this event. All in all, I would like to thank our YouTube viewers as well as the participants for this thrilling debate and your wonderful speeches. I hope everyone had a good day. Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.